Father's Day is coming up. Month of June, month we're putting this program out. Black fathers. It's a lot going on. We have good fathers, we have bad fathers. We have fathers that are engaged, fathers that are not. We have certain fathers that some of the children are probably cool and some of them are not. There's been so much confusion in the lives of black folks over our time in this nation that there's just a lot of negativity, a lot of symptoms of our illness. And one of those symptoms are our kids, unfortunately. And as I pretty much talk about in every program, there's nobody really that cares about an individual's life except that individual. And so we're the only ones that are going to be able to fix it. So this is a message maybe to black dads because this month is Father's Day and all. And so I'm thinking of my father, and I was looking back at his family line. My dad was born in the Bronx, New York in 1921, and he joined the Army, World War II. He was a cannoneer in World War II as a young man. He entered as a private in the Army and the Army Air Corps and all. He ended up becoming a warrant officer JG, junior grade. He got out of the military, and when the Korean War started, he went back in. He joined back into the military. He went to join the Army, but they wouldn't give him his rank. You know, there was a lot of racism going on back in those days, especially. And so I guess a recruiter was watching his little conflict he was having. The Air Force recruiter was watching the conflict he was having with the Army guy who wouldn't budge. And he said, "Hey, come over here." He said, "You join the Air Force, we'll make sure you go into the Air Force as a Master Sergeant." So my father joined the Air Force as a Master Sergeant and eventually became a chief. Later on, he continued his education. He ended up graduating from Wright State University. This was his last assignment, Wright-Patterson. And what's very interesting is, many of you know, I've been going to school for the last 10 years. I just got my master's degree in March. And the school, Park University, which is it's a university in Missouri, but it works closely with military bases and has satellite offices in the major military bases across the United States. And Wright-Patt is one of those bases. And so the classes, many of the classes are online. You can take some of the classes in person at the base, but you can also take classes online, which is what I did primarily. Now the interesting part is, you know, my father passed away like maybe 20 years ago. And my mother passed away about 2 years ago. So one of my brothers was going through my mother's house and passing out a lot of the stuff, the keepsakes that we might want to hang on to. And for me, he gave me a bunch of paperwork, a lot of stuff that was written down in my dad's hand, a lot of things and citations and awards and all this stuff. And for me, that was great. I liked going through and reading stuff like that. It was the perfect thing for me. What's very interesting, as I was going through this paperwork, I found some documentation that my father was actually an instructor at the college that I graduated from. So come on now. And I didn't even know that. I mean, I know my father, he was always working, he was always had his nose in books and papers, and he was always doing stuff, but that was just him. Never really considering what it is actually he was doing, but he was actually an instructor at the college, at the university that I graduated from. And that just blew my mind. But I'm saying that for a reason, because it would seem to anyone, a lot of times you have GIs that join the military and, you know, that's it, just do my 20, retire, and, you know, now I have a pension and all, and hit 65 and Social Security and all that. But my father was a black man raised in the Bronx in the 20s, born in the 20s. As we've been researching, one of my brothers does a lot of genealogy information, we found out that his uncles, or, you know, his dad, was pretty successful in whatever it was he was doing at the time. But as it turned out, his brothers were like in and out of jail, Sing Sing, as a matter of fact, okay? So it's very interesting that my dad's father just happened to avoid that negative lifestyle and made something of his life. And he was able to impart that drive into my dad. And then my father's siblings, they all joined the military, some the Navy, some the Army. His sister was an officer, a nurse in World War II. And they all went their separate ways. One of his brothers became an attorney. Another brother became a postmaster in New York. His sister became an actual nurse in a regular civilian hospital. So they all were successful. And then there was my dad, who continued on with the military, and then got out of the military and became civil service. He did like over 40 years for Uncle Sam, but continued his education, and then became an instructor as well at a university. And so the point I'm making out of that is that it is imperative that we don't stop, okay? That we don't stop, because as he passed that baton on to us, all of his sons, you know, a brother that's retired, a brother that's in a very good position with the county, retired, now back with the county again in the court system. Another brother, the ex-mayor of Beaver Creek, 2 terms, and a master's degree. My sister, my baby sister, is a PhD. I just got my master's degree. And my children, my son got his degree from the University of Cincinnati. My daughter's in the 8th grade now, one of the best schools, you know, college-minded. The point is that there was a baton that had to keep passing, and so it's very imperative that as fathers we understand our role in if we have to initiating that baton, but as well continuing that baton. There's never a time to rest, and so I saw that in my dad, in that he could have stopped after he retired from the Air Force, but no, he went back to work for Uncle Sam as a civil servant. And continued the process. And he could have stopped there, but he continued his education. And after that, he began teaching at the university. He continued carrying that baton and passing that baton to the rest of us when it became time. And so when we look at our community today, and the point is that we have a community that's not quite well. We know that, the black community in America. The black community in America is suffering tremendously, even depending on what administration seems to be, you know, in office, and the influences of that administration on the public and on the authorities, the police, and those that are in positions of authority have been very heavy-handed toward black folks. And I'm thinking that we've been in this nation for 400 years and emancipated in 1864, I believe. So given not quite 200, about 150 or so years of freedom, why are we still in this position, still crying out Black Lives Matter? What I want to suggest, given our freedom in 1864, and still the path of violence and oppression and racism and prejudice and unfairness that our people had to be faced with, by now we should be well. And what I'm suggesting in this, you know, given that my father was born in 1920, given that he became a warrant officer through World War II, joined the military as a master sergeant, ended up getting his college degree, civil service, teaching in a university, there were opportunities available, okay? And the point I'm making is that there are opportunities available for black folks that we've not taken advantage of. And this is not exonerating the people out there, the white folks that have, you know, been catalysts to the negative treatment that many of us, you know, have experienced, and the prejudice and the racism and all that. But I'm suggesting is that they're not going to change until we change. And what I'm suggesting is that we have to change, we have to be successful in spite of them. And then they have no recourse but to change. So we had a situation in our city with the KKK, this big KKK rally that was coming up. As it turned out, there were only 9 of them that showed up. And 1,000 black folks, counter-protesters, showed up to protest against them. The city spent $650,000 preparing for that rally, making sure there was security, right? And so I was talking to some black folks, and this older woman, well, I say older, she's my age, 60 years old, said, well, they had a freedom, they had the right to speak, and that money was spent so they could protect us. I got news for you. That $650,000 wasn't there to protect us from them. It was spent to protect them from us. And so when you look at a lot of the rallies that have been taking place across the land and in their counter protesting, who ends up being demonized in those protests? There are black organizations that come to the rescue, come to counter the actual antagonists that are marching down the street, and they get demonized, okay? So I'm just suggesting that we need to look at that situation and understand there needs to be a new game plan. I know there are a lot of people that are celebrating because of everyone that showed up to counter-protest the rally, and like we were victorious and all that. That was no victory. That wasn't even a battle. That reminds me of, you seen the movies where a little ragtag army goes out there and they have a quick, decisive victory and they're celebrating in the celebration, and they don't realize that right over the hill is this vast army is getting ready to decimate them? We need to realize that this situation, this battle is not over yet. And that there are going to be other battles that we're going to have to face. And what happened in Dayton on Memorial Day, or the Saturday prior to a Memorial Day at that rally, that was really nothing. Okay? Nothing has changed. It may have just been a distraction, but nothing has changed. Your lot in life hasn't changed. The authorities haven't changed their attitude about you. All the way up to the top authority in this nation. The situation hasn't changed. I think in this city, the only reprieve that we've had to racism was that tornado that hit on Memorial Day, only because it was an emergency and folks had to respond. There's an old Chinese proverb that's alluded to in the teachings of Sun Tzu regarding how two warring factions can come together when facing a particular enemy or a particular storm. And but when that enemy is gone, and when that storm subsides, everything eventually just gets back to how it was. And so our situation here really hasn't changed. There was no battle, there was no conflict. And I'm standing on the same position I was on prior to that rally, is that there's only one way to defeat that enemy. And the only way to defeat that enemy is for us to be successful. Okay? Us to be successful. And to be successful, we have to make some changes in our lives. Stop doing drugs and alcohol. Stop partying while we're at war. Get ourselves healthy. Exercise. Can't think right if we're not healthy. Get educated. Educated in networking. That's what's going to bring that money into our communities, into our lives. That's what's going to affect our children, especially as dads trying to pass that baton on. Demonstrating the importance of education and then using that education to better our lot in life. Working for companies, creating companies, and getting armed ourselves to protect ourselves whenever the need arises. We have to do these things in order for us to survive. We spend too much time. There are a lot of folks. You don't need to do all that. We just need to just get folks on our side. That's not going to help. Come on, it's been 400 years. Even I believe there's a biblical verse that says something like, "The kingdom of God suffers violence, but the violent take it by force." That's what I'm suggesting today, but I don't believe that even the biblical verse is giving a semblance of not talking about actual violence, but talking about that violent enthusiasm to understand that you are the one that's going to make this happen. And that violent enthusiasm has to be in the area of health, has to be in the area of education, has to be in the area of being able to defend yourself, has to be in the area of not getting that buzz when we're still facing a viable opponent. We shall overcome. Those songs aren't going to do it. We have to overcome. It's not going to just happen. When in history has that ever happened? Just wanting something to happen, just needing it to happen, then all of a sudden it's not going to happen unless we do it. There's nobody else out there. It's just us. Black lives don't matter to anybody but us. We have to do it. And it's a simple remedy. Stop doing it. I don't care about Friday nights anymore. It's not about going out Friday night. It's not about the weed. It's not about the alcohol. And they come up with all these, I don't even know what the drinks are, Ciroc or something, and Crown Royal, and Chevis. Making all these cool poisons for black people to believe that this is the way to roll. It's not. Sobriety is the way to roll. No buzz is the way to roll. Healthy eating is the way to roll. Exercise is the way to roll. Education is the way to roll. Being able to defend yourself if the need arises is the way to roll. We've been sold we've been given, what is this, sold it's a negative, something that just isn't good. There's an old saying, I can't remember what it is. All I'm saying is, we've been convinced to embrace something that's wrong. Let me give you an example. At work, where I work, you have an environment there where there's a union. And when new people come in, if they work too hard, unions are, right? And I'm part of a union, but you know, sometimes you have to consider what you bought into. Now, when people come in, the new people especially, they start working too hard, you know, it's like, come on, don't work so hard, you're making us look bad. Well, we all know what I'm talking about, right? But what's interesting is what you're really saying there is, nah, we're not going to lose all that. I'm not trying to get myself jammed up with the union. Scratch that. 5, 4, 3, 2, 1. We have to come to a place where we are not trying to ingratiate ourselves to those folks who hate us. For real. I mean, it's just not going to happen. And we do find a lot of black folks that just want that to be happening. I just want to be friends. And, you know, you can't make somebody be your friend. You just have to take care of your business. Our brother on the internet the other day was talking about African American, the term African American. I don't want just African. I just want to be American. So he's just Xing out the whole African American part. He's just American. You know what I find very interesting is that Americans who are Jewish don't try to distance themselves from Israel. Even the white Jews whose ancestors had never ever even been into the region of Israel, they even associate themselves with Israel. You find folks that are of Irish descent. They love to say, I'm Irish American. Thank God I'm Irish. And all little t-shirts and green hats, especially in March. But black folks, I don't want to be African American. And maybe it's because of the shameful way we came to this nation. And the fact that the ills have never been acknowledged or even rectified, and that there is still negativity that we're facing today in this nation, even after all that. And from a psychological perspective, the shame of it all, it's a lot easier, or maybe a lot, you know, maybe make us feel better to disassociate ourselves from that part of our history. But that's the blood that's flowing through our veins. I have African blood flowing through my veins. I have Mexican blood flowing through my veins. My grandfather, my mother's father is Mexican. I'll never deny. Africa has never done me wrong. Mexico has never done me wrong. I'm a veteran of America, military. I am the son of a veteran. I am the brother of 4 veterans. This is my country. There's one brother chimed in on that same post. He said, you know, Africa, I just don't want to go back to Africa. I'm not going to Africa. Those people that don't like me, they can go leave. I mean, why would I let a person dumber than me convince me to leave? It's like when after Obama became president, all these folks we thought were sane began pulling out their dunce caps. You notice how similar dunce caps looked at those other caps, right? For real. I'm just saying is, don't let a person dumber than you control you. And don't let yourself be dumbed down. You have a potential. You have a potential to do and to be greater. Take advantage of those opportunities. But you know what's dumbing us down? Alcohol. You know what's dumbing us down? Weed. You know what's dumbing us down? Unhealthy foods. You know what's dumbing us down? No exercise. You know what's dumbing us down? Not being able to defend ourselves. Take care of your business. You know, it seems at times difficult for some of my friends and people that I know to grasp the fact that I'm a minister and that I'm telling people to take care of themselves and to protect themselves and that you're the only one that's going to take care of your business. And I guess I got some flack around early May. It was my daughter's birthday, and I put on as my Facebook profile me holding my AR. I have an AR-15 shotgun, one of them cool kind of shotguns, you know, with the handle and all, and a Glock. And all I was saying was, you know, my daughter's 14. And all the guys kind of understood what I was saying, but some of my religious friends took issue with that, you know, and I'm like, nah. I believe that we're all related. We all come from the same source. Yeah, I know we all have affixed ourselves to certain religions, but I believe that we are all from the same source. Humanity, we are all related, we're all brothers. I believe that from like a spiritual perspective, we go on forever, just not in these forms. I think we are all okay, and if you know, if I have to take you out, you're still okay. You're just going to get to that eternity place a little bit quicker. If you hadn't if you hadn't been doing what you should have been doing. So the point I'm making is, I believe, I am a minister, okay? But I also believe it's necessary for us to begin to protect what is good and what is trying to be good. We have a world that has a lot of evil, and that evil is hampering the wellness of this planet. And so when evil is eliminated, I really don't have a problem with that. Okay. Now, I don't mean go out and eliminate evil like that. Go out and aggressively and proactively. I just mean protect your space, protect yourself. And honestly, I don't believe that the guns and everything are actually necessary to have to use. What I believe is a lot of these evil people that are standing on the Second Amendment and standing on the NRA and God, guts, and guns made our country and all that kind of stuff. Those are really cowards. I mean, come on now. When you don't have a gun in your hand and then you have a gun in your hand, there's a big difference. I know there is for me. You do grow some gonads, when you have a gun in your hand. You do feel a little bit braver when you have a gun in your hand. So I understand that, but what I'm saying is we have people like that they're so emboldened simply because they believe this black man does not have a gun. Man, I shared this story but a few months back I went to my family and we went to Canada. First time I've ever been to Canada, It's pretty cool. People are a whole lot nicer there than they are here. They'll even let you in on the highway if you're trying to, it's just amazing the difference. But we came back, it was a nice sunny Sunday, early, and I decided I was going to grill out, So I went down to Myers, when my family was getting unpacked and all that. And so I'm sitting in the parking lot at Myers, listening to a song before I go in. A song was on, I don't know, and it was a cool song. I was just listening to it. Beautiful day. And I just happened to look up and walking along in front of, kind of coming down toward in front of my truck, was this white guy, kind of country-looking white guy, jeans on and some boots, and, country-looking guy. And he has a woman, wife, girlfriend, I don't know what she was with him. And he's just staring at me, just scowling at me. And I just happened to look up and noticed he was looking at me like that. So anyway, he just kept on doing whatever I was doing. Didn't think anything of it. Then I went on into Myers once the song was done. I'm walking through there, and then I see that guy. And he's got a gun. He's wearing a gun, okay? Then I realized what it was. He's trying to start some mess with this black guy. Now, he didn't know I had my Glock right next to me. I mean, he wouldn't have got off scot-free like he was thinking. But see, he is like a lot of folks out there that are believing black folks are not armed. And now the more black folks that are armed, able to defend, see, I'm not going to be victimized. We need not to be victimized. We need to start carrying our weapons. We need to start being armed. They need to know that they're not the only ones armed. And the point being, there's not going to be the Wild Wild West. They're just going to stop being silly like that. That's what you got. That's what the arms race was. When the Soviet Union had their nukes and we had our nukes, nobody wanted to fire off their nukes because nobody wanted to be hit with nukes. But imagine if only the Soviet Union had nukes and we didn't. What do you think would happen? Same thing happening in the United States when you got one set of people walking around believing they're carrying arms. They're going to be bullies. We need to balance this thing out. A lot of black people, good-hearted people, no, don't want to do that. No, you need to do that. You got too many black folks being gunned down. Too many. There was a guy just last week, I saw this on the internet. He was somewhere down Tallahassee, wherever that is. I think it's in Florida or Arkansas. I don't know where Tallahassee is. So he walks, it was on Mother's Day, I believe. He walks into this little restaurant, a brother with his white wife, and they get beat to a pulp by a whole bunch of white guys. Somebody finally calls 911 and says, this is a 911 call. There's a black guy in here being beat to a pulp and nobody's helping him. That was the 911 call. Man, let me tell you what. Black Lives Matter, only the black people. You got to be able to take care of yourself. As I'm reading this article, okay, the guy comes up and says something about what is this Africa Day, and then he gets pushed and he gets pushed, and before you know it, they're all beating him up. You just need to be able to protect yourself and your family. Okay? That's all I'm saying. And if they know that you're armed, there's probably not going to be a conflict. The only thing that's going to happen is less black people are going to be getting killed. For real. Okay? And, I'm just saying. We have to be well holistically. And so that means stop getting that buzz, stop breaking laws, start eating right, exercise, get educated, and get armed. Take care of your business. But anyway, this was, I guess, the Black Father's Day message. That was the intention. Because I'm speaking to fathers right now. Now, I was speaking to a black mother the other day. She was just telling me that her son gave her a 38 or something. I don't know what she said it was. 358. I don't know what kind of gun it was. But, we're getting wise. But black men, we need to step up. We need to be presenting a good example for our children on what it is that we should be. It doesn't matter if we've been made. Let me tell you what's the most powerful to our kids. When we admit that we were wrong. A lot of times as black men, we want to act like we got it going on and nothing's wrong. And that's the very wrong thing to do. Look. My dad coming up, he was like anti-weed, because he was military and anti-weed. And in my mind, as a young teenager, I'm just thinking, well, Dad, he just don't know how good it is. That's it. But if my father had told me what I found out after he died, that was he was in the Bronx, as a kid, he smoked weed, I would have put more weight on his opinion. But he was ashamed to tell me what he did when he was a kid. Man, I wasn't that way with my son. Because, weed might make you feel good, but weed is going to keep you from accomplishing the things that you need to accomplish in life. It was the wrong thing to do. It's a terrible thing to do. I preached that to him and shared him the truth about my life. Guess what? He's a 30-year-old man, educated, living a successful, healthy life, and he doesn't smoke weed. I don't hide that stuff. Talking to my little girl coming up, talking to her about guys. The tricks they play, the games they play, even when they're thinking they're serious, they're really not, and they don't even realize that they're just part of this big. I just given her all the tricks. And she looks at me, she said, Daddy, were you like that? And all of a sudden, man, I'm thinking, gosh, I've always been a hero in my baby's life. Am I going to have to tell her I was like that? Yes, honey, I was just like that. And that's how I know. And gosh, she wasn't totally disappointed. She wasn't disappointed in me. But it was like I had to come to a point at that moment, like my dad did about the weed, but he chose the other path. Daddy, were you like that? My daughter's well-being is more important to me than my hero look to her. Yes, baby, I was like that. That's how I know. Okay. If I had said I wasn't like that, but this is what I think guys are, there would be no weight to my opinion. But if I say, honey, this is how I was, that's how I know this is how guys are, there's automatically weight to my opinion. We need to be honest with our kids. And I'm telling you what, if you're messed up now, if you're doing things you shouldn't do now, the honesty to your child is, honey or son, this is what I've been, but this what I've been is wrong. Now I'm going to start doing what I need to do. I've been drinking, but I don't want you to drink. And I shouldn't be drinking. I quit. I shouldn't be smoking this weed. I quit because I don't want you smoking weed. It's going to be tough, isn't it? How important are your kids to you? How important is the black community to you? How important is the future of black people in this nation to you? Not enough to stop smoking weed. Not enough to stop drinking alcohol. Not enough to stop going out on Friday night. Not enough to start eating right. Not enough to start exercising. Not enough to go back to school. Not enough to get armed. Protect yourself. Start doing the right thing. That will be so powerful to your child to recognize that they've seen who you were and to recognize that this is so important to you that you're willing to change your life just so they can be well. Think about it.